Poke.
We're here.
Looks like we have 11 participants so far.
We're on air. We are on air right now, Bo.
Beautiful.
And we're going to wait for Ron because he wants to do the intro.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. Gyi, you're at a conference right now, aren't you?
Yes, I'm at Filevine's Lex Summit in beautiful Salt Lake City. And great show. If you're a Filevine user, you should for sure be here. And if you're interested in learning about Filevine, you should be here.
You're having
You
a
have a lot of
busy day
clients on
today.
Filevine? Lead docket Filevine stack?
What's that? Was that to me
Who's
or?
Yeah, it's you. Do you have clients that
Yes.
are on the that's a
Yep.
popular stack. They do
hmm
good stuff there.
I was actually just in Salt Lake yesterday.
Oh, I just ships in the night.
When did you get in?
Yesterday night.
Oh wow.
Yesterday afternoon.
Ron is still backstage. Thanks everyone for joining us. Ron will be joining shortly. There he
Here he
is.
comes.
Right before we jumped on, all my audio went out. Sorry about that. Thank you. I did not intend to leave you hanging for the first 2 minutes. I'm sure you had a little bit of chatter here. I was just making sure that my microphone and laptop were functioning. I don't know why it went out, Gyi, the second we fixed yours before we get started. But if you didn't thank you everyone for taking the time and giving us some of your attention here. This is another webinar series. Appreciate you all joining us. Very grateful that you're allowing us this next hour. Couple housekeeping items before we jump in deep. There will be a chat and Q&A. If anybody doesn't mind, just to throw something in the chat, ask a question just so that we can make sure that is working. It would be greatly appreciated. I do my best to make sure that I can look at both of those and keep up while also trying to pay attention to ask some thoughtful questions as we go through the event. There will also be a very short survey. If you want to speak with any of us after, just select who you want or just say no thank you. But we're always happy to share whatever it is that we can that might help you and your firms improve your marketing efforts. Again, if you have joined us, thank you. If it's your first time and are not aware of who I am, I'm Ron Latz. I'm founder of LegalFenix. We are a fractional CMO consultancy. We really focus on helping firms invest that marketing that works. As with all previous sessions, today is just going to be straight conversation, really about diving into what a mutually successful relationship between a law firm and a legal marketing agency looks like. We're going to switch it up a little bit because I do think that, most of the time the law firms and the lawyers are the ones that are evaluating agencies and they're asking, are they the right fit? Do they charge the right price? Like, what has been your experience with A, B, or X, Y, and Z? But what really does get overlooked is that the best agencies that are out there, the ones that are most reputable, they flip the script and they're really also vetting you, which is why I'm really excited to have you, Gyi, and you, Bo, both join me. Very similarly, they tell clients and firms, I could tell you by firsthand, what they need to hear, and it's not always what those firms want to hear. So Gyi Tsakalakis from AttorneySync, Bo Royal from Pareto, Bo, first time, second time joiner on the series. So thanks again for joining me here. And Gyi, I'm sure we'll have a lot of other sessions in the future as well. So both these guys have agencies that serve firms across the country. We're going to share exactly, what goes into some of our decision-making process to figure out if you're truly ready for this type of partnership. So without further ado, Bo, Gyi, anything else that you want to add before we get started?
No, let's rock and roll.
All right,
Glad to be
let's
here,
do it.
guys.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be helpful. Lawyers are always trying to find the red flags to ensure that they are partnering with someone that has their best interests at heart, that is going to protect their investment and give them guidance, regardless of whether or not you sell the thing that you believe that firm actually needs. So we'll start from a 30,000-foot view, very, very broad. And I know that we're going to get pretty granular here, but We are here for a reason. We want to give some insight into how we're all evaluating the law firms. And I guess the first question that we could just start off with is, why is that even important? And then what even makes a law firm an unfit or bad fit client? Either of you can take it away.
Go ahead, Bo. You lead us off. Kick us off. Get us fired up.
What was the first part of the question?
Why we're even having this conversation, right? Because I think we joked around, but like the lawyers might not even care. I don't care that they're vetting us and what they're evaluating me for. I'm just trying to find someone to run my ads.
Well, okay, got it. So obviously you should care if you are invested in the success of your law firm because this is a very complicated problem that you're bringing someone in to solve. It's not a flash in the pan tactic, and if you view it that way, you're going to fail, right? Any agency that wants to maintain their reputation, that wants to actually deliver value, is going to be very careful about who they ultimately partner with because they want to make sure that they can actually deliver the result, right? And there's so many things that go into that to generate that result, right? So I can speak from personal experience. In the early years of being an agency owner, I thought my job was to make the sales process as quick and seamless as possible. And guess what? I have the scar tissue to prove that that is not the way to, number one, scale an agency, but number two, deliver consistent results to the partners that you bring on. So our sales process over the last few years has evolved to actually include an assessment first. We will only partner long term with a law firm if they go through our assessment deliverable first. And it's partially self-serving for my agency because we get to really look under the hood and see, hey, is this a firm that we can actually help? But then on the flip side, for the law firm that's interested in speaking or interested in working with us, they get to understand, if I work with these guys, what work are they going to tackle first? Do these guys actually know what they're talking about? So on and so forth. I always use the analogy, if you had a health issue, you wouldn't just go right to a surgeon right away and get something taken out, right? You would go to a radiologist and you would get an x-ray first, and then they would properly diagnose your issue, and then you would know what type of specialist to bring in from there. Same thing goes with a legal marketing agency. They should be doing some type of diagnostic first before they start prescribing solutions for you. And I know that Gyi thinks in a similar fashion. We did a podcast earlier this year, and we talked about this. I think Gyi, your agency does something similar with new clients as well, correct?
Yeah, I mean, my thing is, back to the top of the question here
Yeah.
is like, why should lawyers care? I think you nailed it. Everybody has been on, maybe not everybody, maybe there's like a few lawyers out there have been lucky enough that they've had the same agency partner for time out of mind, but most firms that we talk to have been on some merry-go-round with agencies. And our view is, and look, I don't want to mislead people. We as committed as we are to exploratory process, to education, to consultation, to alignment on business metrics, to transparency and expectation setting and all this stuff. There are still clients that are like, look, I'm not seeing it. Like maybe we were in alignment at one point, we're not in alignment. And so my whole thing is like the only way off the merry-go-round is for us to be completely aligned on what we're trying to do. What we're going to look at are the, call them leading indicators, the things that are leading up to whatever business metrics we want to get to, whether that's, number of new cases or cost per case or, qualified leads and cost per qualified consultation, all that kind of, all that business metric stuff. And so, this is just to reiterate, the point of this is to be like, look, this is a two-way conversation. And to answer that second part that Ron brought up, the red flags that we see when people come in and see, they're like, I want this thing, whatever it is. I want SEO or I want ads or whatever. And you start to peel back the layers of what's going on. And, a lot of times we're like, where you're at right now, this isn't the right thing for you. And I it's funny because one of our, mutual worthy rivals. I was having a conversation with him, several weeks ago. And right now he's like, I'm getting all these calls. People are like, I want AI, AI marketing, AI content, AI, how are you using AI for all this stuff? And he's like, and I'm like, well, are you, you can't, chat GPT visibility and perplexity visibility and all that stuff. And I'm like, well, how are you talking to them about, attribution and cost per case and tying it back and blah, blah. He's like, well, I'm not. But he's like, they're asking for it. And so like I feel compelled to like sell them. And he goes, and Bo, that really resonated with me with the healthcare context. Because it's like the patient comes in, they see an ad on TV for whatever medication. They go into the doctor and they're like, give me the medication. And the doctor's like, you don't need this medication. And they're like, well, I'm going to go find someone else who's going to give me this medication. And we feel like we're in that situation all the time where we're like, look, here also a simplified example. You're like, I want SEO and I want cases tomorrow. And I'm like, this is not going to work for you. And unfortunately, we've all been to conferences. I've seen people on stage that are guaranteing, ROI in personal injury in competitive landscapes from SEO in 30 days. And so this is why we're here. That's to me, like, it's that conversation is why we're here. If you come in thinking like I want SEO and I want clients in 30 days, I'm gonna tell you, like, go call somebody else.
Yeah, agreed. And the example that you're providing there, whether there's first and foremost, when there is a merry-go-round or a carousel of vendors, for me, it is initially just a red flag, because typically if a firm is jumping on a call with me and they list out the usual suspects and they've been with 5 or 6 marketing agencies in as many years, like, there is a common denominator there, right? So either you are not setting yourself up for success initially, or your own expectations are unrealistic. And then finally, maybe the agency didn't set the proper expectations, because listen, no one likes to turn down revenue. But when you are having those conversations, for example, Gyi, if they say, I need SEO, but you know that they need ads, or the reverse, Bo, they say like, oh, I want social. And you're like, listen, you really need paid search for what your goals are. You pushing back, you just declining, pointing them in the other direction, at least so that they know, like, what are you doing there, so they don't feel like they came and didn't get anything else out of it.
And it's tricky because I talk to my partners about this all the time, because we're like, look, we want to guide people down the best path for where they're at in their journey, where they're, another big one that so many of our worthy rivals don't take in consideration is like where the law firm is in their growth journey. And so if you are in like startup mode, just for lack of a better way of describing it, and we're huge on like diversifying and setting short-term, intermediate, and long-term goals and all that kind of stuff. But in terms of resource deployment, if you're in startup mode, you've got, you haven't even have verified your Google business profile, you don't have any reviews, and then you come in and you spend several $1,000s on local SEO because you need clients next week. Like, this is going to go poorly for everybody, and then you're going to come back and be like, this agency wasn't honest with me and yada, yada, yada. And we all know that this is why we're here. It's like this. And so it's like, and so how do we educate? And that's my thing about this whole conversation is like, what are the things we can do to educate law firm owners and marketing people about how they can change their mindset when they're approaching a conversation with an agency? I think some of it's keeping an open mind. I think some of it is, I love Bo's example. It's like, listen to your doctor.
But WebMD told me I needed something different, Gyi.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, right. And well, that's the other thing too. The unfounded reliance on Chat GPT to vet vendors is absolutely out of control. And again, like, I'm grateful when someone comes on and we're like, how did you hear about us? And they're like, Chat GPT. And I'm like, you realize that's a horrible way for you to make a decision about hiring us.
Do you know what I did before this? I Googled best legal marketing agencies and then worst legal marketing agencies, and the same agencies showed up.
Right. Yeah. So
don't do that. There's an education point. Don't rely solely on chat. Look, you want Chat GPT to help you surface some ideas, fine. But like, again, it's and then and if I was trying to put myself in the position of the law, because there's like, we got these 3 guys on here, They're talking about the red flags that they see with law firms. Well, like, give me something constructive I can take away from this. So, like, when I actually am having a conversation with an agency partner, and I'm like, I keep coming back to the same thing, which I don't want to be a broken record about, but it's like, get alignment on what the objective is that you're hiring the person to do, and be very specific, and be very specific how you're going to measure that, and what you're going to see before you can get there, and what the time frames are, and yada yada yada.
Yeah. I think if you go into those conversations, and this is what I'm looking for, especially when I'm vetting out fractional engagements, I need to be able to go to individuals like yourself or other agencies to show them what the target is. What are we aiming for? Right? I tie it back to the business goal and objective. There are channels out there that with the associated tactics we can deploy to start generating the results that we want. But if I don't go to the agency and kind of set our sights on that target, we're going to be kind of operating blind there. Now, you talk, Gyi, about let's put ourselves in the law firm shoes, their perspective. One of the things, and hopefully it doesn't take up the rest of this conversation here, but I'm sure that we can go down a couple of different rabbit holes when it comes to, and because I don't sell any of the products or services that you offer by design, I have a different I guess comfortableness, if you will, where I can tell the firm, like, you should spend 150 a month, 150,000 a month on ads. I'm not going to be the one that takes that money or charges you to manage it. You've got to go somewhere else. But there, I also have worthy rivals and competitors that might do that on that firm's behalf. Where I'm getting at is, in those situations, if you're going to be approaching an agency, one of the things that I have found that I really need to push back is, it would be malpractice on my part if I were to go and spend 50, 60, 70, $80,000 on any campaign if you don't have the proper reporting and tracking infrastructure in place. And I don't know about both of you, but many times, especially on the consulting side, when the lawyer is trying to figure out whether or not their agency is doing okay or meeting whatever expectation they've made up in their mind, and I go to the carpet and ask them, let's look at call tracking data, let me see the CRM, and it's deer in headlights. We don't have it. We don't have it in place. So how are you both navigating those situations? Because are you just helping them set it up? Are you running different campaigns? Like, what can we tell the firms they can do to put themselves in a better position to utilize the services that you're offering?
Do you mind if I take this to start,
Go
Gyi?
for it.
Go for it.
So I think me and Gyi's agencies are similar in this regard, in that we view the data and attribution piece as part of our responsibility. Obviously, some of the onus is on the law firm too, in making sure that, intake data gets stored somewhere, so on and so forth. But part of the work that we're doing is not only generating the result, it's actually being able to track and make sense of the result, right? And actually prove out an ROI to all these different things that we're doing on our client's behalf. So I think that's a great question for a law firm that's vetting a marketing agency, which is simply like, talk to me about how you're going to attribute all of these things that you're going to be doing on our behalf. How is this going to be tracked? How is this going to be measured? What's my responsibility in this effort? Like, and on the flip side, like, the agency should be asking you, the law firm, like, what's your data infrastructure look like? What CRM are you using? How are you currently tracking this, right? And just by like 2 or 3 questions, I can quickly tell if they have their, for lack of a better word, shit together. So I think it really comes down to, does the marketing partner that you're speaking with view data and attribution as part of their responsibility? I'd also take it a step further. Intake as well. You should be asking questions about intake. I'm actually speaking with a prospective client right now. They want, I think, something like 40, 50 incremental cases per month. Their conversion rate on wanted leads right now is like 40%. And I'm like, you realize that you don't even need to hire me. just address this and you'll, voila, have more cases without any incremental cost. You might have to hire a few more intake folks, but it's, any agency worth their salt is going to want to be held accountable to business metrics, business outcomes. And if they're going to be in that foxhole, they're going to be asking a lot of questions about data and attribution and intake, because there's no way to decouple performance marketing, digital marketing from those aspects of your business, because they have such a profound impact on the end result. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, no, 100% aligned there. I mean, I think the hard one for me is because it's like, the ideal, to do the opposite, the ideal client for us is what you described, Bo. They've got their sophisticated data infrastructure. They're thinking business metrics. They are committed to, they've solved the intake issue. They want to be focused. They want to be data driven, all those things. And, at least my experience, maybe I'm attracting the wrong firms, but a lot of firms come in and they don't have those things. They're like, I've seen you guys talking, or I listened to a podcast or whatever, and I'm like, I'm hearing what you're saying, but like we don't have data infrastructure. And I'll say, well, and our team will say, okay, well, this is one way to solve that problem. But a lot of firms ultimately, for a variety of reasons, like they don't get to that ideal state, and then we have to ask ourselves, look, can we lay enough? First we'll be completely transparent about like this isn't going to work as well as it should, just frankly. And this becomes hard because now you're in this, going back to the patient thing, you're like, you got to eat broccoli. And the patient's like, I'm not eating broccoli. What are my other options? And so we always run into like, do we take this client on? And for me, I'm like, it's a huge caveat. And I'd be here to your both of your thoughts on this. But there's a certain like minimal viable data infrastructure, tracking infrastructure that you've got to have in place, in my opinion, before we'll even be like, because we don't, again, we don't want to be on the hook 6 months from now, because as much expectation set as we can do through the exploratory phase, we get a lot of head nodding. Lawyers will be like, yep, 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 yep. And then 6 months in, they're like, how do I know this is working? And we're like, well, remember back when you were like, you refused to do call tracking? Well, like, yeah, we can't, how are things going with my calls? I'm like, we can't tell you that. And so I think there's a minimum viable. The other side of this coin, and this gets back to like the things that are like showstoppers for me. And I'd love to hear both of your thoughts on this one too. The reluctance to want to share business data with us. So like the lawyer comes to us and they're like, we want, our goals are to grow 30% top line revenue year over year. We're like, great. What's your top line revenue now? Oh, well, we're not sharing that with you. Oh, yeah. So we're just supposed to just be operating in a vacuum. What's your target cost per case? Oh, well, we're not sharing that with you. What's your target cost per qualified lead? Oh, we're not sharing that with you. And so like, to me, if you can't talk about those things, and there's a variety of reasons, I get that lawyers are tend to be protective about that. And there's this sentiment, which it never really made sense to me, but I kind of get it. But there's this sentiment that if we share those numbers with you, you're going to take advantage of us in terms of what the fee is going to be. And again, my attitude has always been like, whatever you pay us has to be baked into your target cost per client. And so if we're not hitting the number with our fee in, like, that's the pushback, right? Because now your cost per client, including our fee, is over the target. We didn't hit it.
I mean, that can go into a whole nother conversation there, what you said to end off on, but I'll go in order and then I'll pass it to you, Bo. First and foremost, if they're not willing to share any of that information, I'll try to help them out as much as I can during that initial discovery call. But we both know at the end of that call, we are not going to be partnering, because if I'm going to be held towards some sort of revenue-based outcome and don't have access to the revenue or financial data, then there's a disconnect. There's too much friction there. Can't do it. As far as like how I try to set this up, Gyi, I've got like 3 different ways. The first and simplest, easiest, I take an Excel sheet, January through December. I get all of their marketing account payable expenses, like transaction reports. We fill in an investment sheet. We look at if they have call tracking, and then put in however many cases they had. If it was 120 for the last year, all right, it's 10 cases per month, just so that we can get a benchmark CAC, cost per lead, or wanted opportunity, because maybe they don't have the sophisticated CRM set up. If they are doing something in an Excel sheet, or maybe the adoption on the CRM isn't great, got to make sure that we get call tracking in place and intake with CallRail, what converts these platforms. It's a thumbs up, thumbs down, right? So we know total leads, thumbs up means it's qualified. And then if you retained them, it's going to require some manual work, but go back, cross-reference it, and then look in your matter management system to see if they did become the client after you sent the engagement letter. And if you want to take it a step further, assign some associated values, estimated case values, retainer values, depending upon your practice area, so you can get an idea of what the total funnel is worth, right? And then last but not least, it's the most sophisticated firms that have call tracking, pushing source data into intake and CRM, into matter management. And then some of these tools have data visualization and reporting components to it if you want your flashy dashboards, right? So like those are kind of the three, how we tackle it.
Yeah, I think you both already hit on the main red flag, which is a lack of transparency around goals. Um, we're flying blind if we don't have that. We need to understand what the baseline is. We need to understand what the go-get is, and then back into the math to make sure that it actually makes sense. One other red flag I'll throw in the mix, maybe not a red flag, maybe sometimes a yellow flag, is like who we're going to be working with on the law firm side. If you're a solo practitioner and you want to hire an agency and you're handling cases and doing 50 million other things in your business, and then you also want to bring on an agency partner and think that's going to work out well, it's not. So you really need to have a dedicated person on your law firm's end that is invested in that relationship, that's willing to get the agency what they need to do their job, that's willing to hold the agency accountable and follow up on these benchmarks that you set, these KPIs that you set. We've run into a lot of situations in the past where we're trying to get content approved and it just sits in the client's queue for a month, a quarter, something ridiculous like that, and all we just need is a thumbs up yes. So making sure that you have someone on your law firm's side that is making sure that this relationship is going well. And I mean, that's a business case for you, Ron, and agencies like yours to come in as the intermediary, as the, objective source of truth throughout the relationship to make sure that both sides are doing what they need to be doing to get the end result. But the who on the law firm end is really important to us when we're vetting potential clients.
I appreciate that, but I want the same thing. I still want the same thing, to have someone else when they get tied up in depots or they're on trial or they're managing a business. They've got families. Great. Some of the firms that we work with are a lot more hands off and just say, hey, Ron and team, run with it. Others, like managing partner, still is joining that monthly meeting, that every other week meeting, whatever it is. To each their own. There's a lot of different ways to manage it, but similar to you, and then I'll let you go, Gyi, is if there is even a marketing coordinator that you are having them build out the newsletter and build the template and ship it, or just doing, even if it is generic, check the box social media, or they're going into the back end of the LSA platform to reconcile, like at least if you have someone else that is doing that tactical stuff, or there are instances where we go out and like hire on behalf, not hire on behalf of the firm, but like do some sort of technical assessment for them to bring someone in-house. They are always the momentum and traction that is built is so much stronger than when we are relying on a single point of contact internally. And I do think that some of the success does hinge on that relationship.
Absolutely. I mean, whether it's approvals, whether it's strategy, and again, I think for us, like we tend to think that the most effective content, whether it's published words, video content, like it requires some level of participation from someone on the ground at the firm. And so, again, like these are the conversations you got to have in terms of an expectation set. But at the end of the day, is like once you agree on that, it's like you got to do just like you expect us to do what we say we're going to do. I think that all three of us are saying like we have expectations of you. Like you've got to do what you say you're going to do, or else we're going to run into these bottlenecks. And Bo, it really hit me because the approval thing in particular is so problematic if you don't have somebody who's prioritizing that. And look, our clients, like the firms take many different forms. Sometimes it's solos, and the lead, as you mentioned, the managing partner is going to take a lead on that, and Maybe there's somebody they've got support that they can hand it off, or maybe you batch things so you can get a bunch of stuff approved in advance, so you've got some time horizon. However, you're going to do that though, if you're the if you say you're going to do something and then now we're on pause, like don't be surprised when it's like, oh, why isn't this working? Well, this is a content heavy campaign we're running and none of the content's out. Like there should be no surprises that it's not working. I think the other thing too that makes me think, and it ties into this, it's like slightly different, but so I'm thinking about this firm that's like, all right, they've got a good handle on their P&L, they're sharing their growth objectives, like they know where they want to go. And then you start having conversations about the budget that we believe it's going to take to get there. And like, we just can never get aligned on that. And so that's another one for me, which is like a deal stopper, is that if you're like, and again, I'd love to hear what you guys think about this, but as a proxy, it's not always the best way to do it, but as a proxy, especially in early conversations, I just try to frame it around like percentage of budget you're going to as a function of total revenue and where you're trying to go. So simple math would be, we're going to spend X percent of our total revenue or target revenue over the course of our time frame we're talking about. And for me, again, and people are all over the map on this, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. But people that come in and they're like, yeah, my budget is less than 5% of my top line revenue and I want to hit a 30% growth target. I'm like, look, we're just, we're the wrong people for you. And really, like, and I hate to, because everybody's different and the firms are special snowflakes and all this stuff. But if you're not around or approaching the 10% mark in terms of budget allocation, there's a trade-off because like not everything has to be outsourced. It's like all in. What are all your marketing things that you're doing? But if you have like really high growth objectives and you're sub 10% on your investment, like that's a red flag that we're just going to be like, we're not the right fit for you. And I say that, and I don't mean to be like, we only work with firms that are spending a lot of money. It's the context of the spend in relation to the growth objective that matters, right?
You just hit the nail on the head. I don't even think about the budget they initially say. I'm not even going to pay attention to it. I'm just going to be curious, what goal do you want to hit? And then we have our own ways of forecasting whether or not, their expectations match reality, right? Because look, a firm can come back and say, yeah, I want to spend 10K a month and I want to generate 50 incremental PI cases per month. And like we all know that's not realistic, but the part of our job in those initial conversations is to explain to them why that's not realistic. Hey, this is what it costs out there right now. And so what I'm getting at is during sales conversations, we're actually presenting a forecast. And again, that's sans whatever budget ideas they have. It's really built around, this is where you're at currently. This is where you want to get to. Here's what that tactical mix looks like to get there. Here's how much these things are going to cost. Are you on board? Yes, no. And we'll welcome the objections, but we're trying to paint a picture up front. This is what it's going to take in terms of cost. This is what the time horizon is. And part of that conversation too is like, let's just say, for example, clients never run Google Ads before. And they're like, yeah, we want to launch this Google Ads campaign. I have to show them that it's going to take months until we get the client acquisition cost to a viable level. Everyone loves to sell, digital ads as, oh, it's instant results. Yeah, it's instant impressions and clicks. It's not going to be instant cases, right? So I actually make sure when I'm presenting a forecast that it's purposefully conservative, because I would much rather outperform expectations and set the bar to such a level where it's like, oh wow, yeah, you told me I was going to be break even on my client acquisition cost by month 4 and it's month 2 and look at me now. It's like, yeah, that's great, but I'm trying to set that expectation, especially for firms that aren't already making a big investment in marketing, that this is in the initial months, frankly, it's a speculative investment. You don't know how this is going to perform yet. So you have to account for that, and you have to make sure that you have the financial backbone to withstand that trial phase or speculative phase, if you will.
Just had this exact situation. Client, California, hyper competitive, doesn't have great data infrastructure, but we know through some, reverse engineering that average CAC is in like the 4K-ish range, which for those markets really isn't all that bad. That being said, gonna jump into ads. And was the question to us, not the agency, which we ran it by the agency to make sure that they were aware of it, because I want to set an appropriate expectation. But I said, listen, your CAC for the first 90, probably to 120 days here at minimum, it is going to be so ugly. It's going to be atrocious. You haven't been running ads for 2 or maybe 3 years. There's other players in this market that are spending aggressively. You're in PI, so you're already kind of forced with how competitive the average, like even cost pers are within that market, right? But then it was a conversation, okay, well, if that's what we think, then we've got to look at these other components of like our ideal client profile. Maybe we can focus on Spanish. And it opened up the lines of communication where at least the expectation that is initially being set was realistic. And now we can revisit that at the 30, 60, 90, 120 days.
Yeah, totally right. And the other thing too that I try to educate clients on is like these not the ecosystem, especially when you're talking about digital ads, it's like super dynamic. So new competitors come in, competitors bow out. You've got quality scores, you've got conversion rates on messaging, you've got targeting, and all that. And the biggest one that people struggle with is what is your growth objective? If you have a very ambitious growth objective, your cost per case is going to be higher because it's going to cost you more money incrementally to buy more market share. Where so many firms get hung up that in our conversations is like, well, you told me that the cost per case was this 2 years ago, and the cost per case is now this. And I'm like, well, what's your volume look like? Well, yeah, you're doing, you were at like, maybe I'm making numbers up here, but like 1% share of voice, and now you want to be the market leader. Well, the cost for those incremental cases is a lot higher. And so, and again, and like even having this conversation, like, and hopefully people that are listening to this resonates, is that it's a very detailed, nuanced conversation. And unfortunately, so many firms that come to us, they've been trained, whether they've gone to a conference or they've read a blog post or they've listened to somebody, they've been trained that it's like a commodity where it's like, tell me how much this marketing stuff costs. And then one that drives me nuts is like you see some of these RFPs, like firms put out RFPs. And we talk about this all the time internally of like, do we even respond to RFPs? Because you look at these RFPs and it's literally commoditizing the service. And I'm like, you're just setting yourself, everybody's going to be set up for failure. So that, just tell you, that's another red flag for us. If you come in with an RFP and you're just like, tell me about how much it costs to do this thing, and tell me what the deliverables are, and how many deliverables we're going to get, and that kind of stuff. Like, I'm already coming into the conversation being like, hey, we need a whole mindset shift on this, because a lot of these things have to be contextualized into like what you're trying to do, what share of market you're trying to get, what are your growth goals, what are the budget you're going to support it, what timelines you need, all this stuff. And so anyway, again, I think for me, like when I think about like just like the red flags on like early red flags, it just comes down to this idea that like all of this stuff is the same. It's all commodity. Just give me the price, and I'm going to shop on price. Whoever's got the best price.
Yeah, I would, to add to that, it just to simplify it even further, I guess, it's the firm that has already prescribed the solution.
Right. That's right. That's the more concise
It's just, hey, this is what we need. Like, tell us what it costs. We don't want to, no questions. We know we want this, right? And it's funny, I just had this thought. I would rather work with a firm that during the sales process asked me 1,000 questions than one that asked me one question.
Right.
I want
100%.
them. I want them to understand what it is they're buying. I want them to be engaged and invested in making the relationship work and do their due diligence. And instead of the firm that's just like, oh, you sell this? Great. What's the price? Great. I'm signing up. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's slow down. Let's make sure that this is the right thing first. I'm always weary when a firm comes and is ready to go. Like, we know we need this, we know we need that. Tell us where to sign. We'll launch next week. Nope. That is a big, big red flag.
Totally. And you maybe just maybe think of another one. Um, you know, and again, I'm a still a licensed lawyer. You know, worked at a small PI shop in a former lifetime. And one of the things that I'm always asking about is let's talk about your client experience. Let's talk about, do you have positive reviews? Because again, if you come in, you know, a lot of these firms come in and they're like, I got a bunch, I want to spend, I got ambitious growth goals. I'm going to support it with the budget. Here's what I expect and all this stuff. And I'm like, you have to overcome a really bad reputation for client service right now because, you know, your Google business profile's got 200 reviews and you're sitting at a 3.6. You've got, I can go online and look at your state bar. You've got a grievance filed against you. And so for us, and again, you know, it's not all just to be like self-righteous and we only want to work with like the best lawyers out there, but there's a practical standpoint of like trying to market firms that have bad reputations in the marketplace. Like there's a tax on that. It's that much harder to overcome if you've got a bad reputation. So that's just another red flag for us that we'll try to look at and suss out. And look, I'm sympathetic. I get it. Like a lot of firms, like they'll come to me and they'll say, you know, we've had some bad experiences. We're trying to fix it, and like we want to work with firms that want to try to fix that stuff. But if you're just like, I'm just going to pour more money on the top, right? I'm just going to buy more ads. I mean, I can't tell you. I always use these examples. These guys that buy traditional offline media, so they're buying a lot of billboards, TV, and radio. And then you go search on their name and it is just ugly. And I'm like, you are just burning money. And so that's another data point that we try to use in terms of like, when you're like, hey, what are the red flags? It's like, if you're not committed to delivering great client experience, we're probably not going to be the right fit, because even if we make the phone ring, you got to overcome that reputation stuff.
I'll give a little inside baseball secret here to some of the things that I do to vet this out, to get the internal culture of the firm. I know a lot of people that just staff for lawyers. So I give them a call. Can you hire for them? Is it easy to hire for them? Do people want to work there? Or are they the firm where it's like, we had to stop working with that firm because we can't source anybody because no one wants to read the job rec because they know it's just a toxic dumpster fire, basically. Right. So like to back end into that to figure out, like, if I get a whiff of, I don't know, something that might be a little bit off, just to throw a feeler out there. Hey, you ever work with this firm? It's the same thing that lawyers are doing. Have you worked with Pareto or AttorneySync or the usual suspects, right? You still should, I don't take it as gospel, but I also think as far as advice that we can give, and I'm shifting a little bit here, is providing a lot more context whenever you are making these decisions, right? Whether you are going to run paid ads or you're going to do SEO or someone else that attempted that social campaign. When you're asking your colleagues or your friends or other agencies about clients that they've had success with when they're doing that, are you dotting your I's and crossing your T's and getting a full understanding of their comprehensive marketing efforts and not just looking at the performance of a single channel in a silo? Because I'm telling you, the firms that might have crushed it initially on those ad campaigns because they went to you to run paid search, multi-million-dollar radio, TV, bus wrap, billboards, like that's all complementing the digital. But then they go and tell their friends, hey, I ran this Facebook ad, it crushed. Go ahead, Gyi.
You just made me think of another one that's a huge red flag for us, is the all their eggs in one channel basket. Like we're just like, we're not gonna, you know, if you're not doing any brand support, like if you come, especially today in today's environment, you're like, I wanted, you know, the SEO only in particular are the ones that are like always a problem, where they're like, we're not doing any brand, we're not buying any media, we're just focusing on SEO. And I'm like, you are extremely vulnerable. You are vulnerable to changes Google's making. You are vulnerable to all sorts of other market forces, you know, economic forces that are going on, that like you are like, even if this works, like, even if we do like quote unquote the SEO that you know, you're getting visibility for non-brand, like this is a classic one, and we're seeing this play out a lot more. But I'll give you an example, and hopefully this will resonate with folks. And it's true for PPC and LSAs as well. But firms that have brand support, meaning that people recognize the brand when they're looking at a search result page, are more likely to select firms that have brand. And so if all you're doing is adding an additional tax if you're going to be in this one channel. Like, I only want to focus on non-brand local pack stuff. Well, guess what? Even if you're getting the reviews and stuff, if there's a competitor in market that has great brand affinity because they're doing community marketing and they're running traditional media and blah, 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 you are at a competitive disadvantage to them. And so anyway, that's my rant. But it's a red flag if you're like, I only want one channel. Like you've got to diversify this stuff.
Yeah, I would say on the flip side, a green flag for us is when we talk to a firm and they have been doing a lot of brand building efforts and they haven't had much in terms of digital activations. And we're like, oh, we know we are going to absolutely crush it for these guys. We're actually speaking with a firm right now that has put a lot of money into a sponsorship with a college football team, and they've had the sponsorship for years, but they've never done anything digital, PPC, retargeting, so on and so forth. And we just know that once we activate those campaigns, it's going to be a slam dunk. So I agree with the red flag that Gyi said, but on the flip side, it's like if they are doing brand building, but they've been lacking in the digital arena, that's a good opportunity for us to come in and add some quick value.
We talked a lot about having open lines of communication, creating a feedback loop. Gyi, this is somewhat pulled from our LinkedIn comment thread about like communication preferences and channels. I'm just curious, like for me, right, I've got Slack, which fractional clients have access to. Obviously, we jump on Zooms. Typically, I'm having a weekly stand up with a partner on the fractional side of the house. We're only going through business metrics and performance, not like in the weeds of did you give this person access or that person access? And then, monthly meetings. Just curious, like what type of cadence you typically put into place or structure with your clients to make sure you're getting those conversations when you need them to keep things running.
Yeah, again, I think in the context of this conversation, it's like it's a red flag if you're like, I don't need to talk to you. Like, I'll talk to you a year from now. Like, I'm like, no, that's not, no, that's not going to be the way this is going to go. So, and I'm going to give you my ideal, and then of course there's like variations on this based on the needs and the whatever the client wants to do. But we run on EOS, and so I think of things in terms of 90-day world. And so to me, the ideal would be, and this is pure ideal, purely idealistic. We come in, we build a 1-year plan based on things like a 10-year target and a 3-year picture. So we've got big picture objectives, like where you're trying to take your firm over the next 10 years, 3 years, and then a 1-year plan. We're building out strategies on a quarterly basis. We're building out a 90-day world where we're like, over the next 90 days, this is what we're going to do. This is why we're going to do it. And this is what we're going to look at after 90 days in terms of whether or not we accomplish what we set out to accomplish. Ideally, we're going to have some what we, the EOS people would call rocks, or just priorities for those 90 days. So like these are the priorities we want to accomplish. Then we're going to do monthly, and this is the one that always drives me nuts too. And this is more on the agency side of things, not so much a red flag of clients. We want to deliver insights and analysis on a monthly basis. And notice I didn't say reporting because so many agencies fire off reports or read reports. The agency people, if you're listening to this, your clients don't need you to read them the report. They don't, we call it reporting the weather. They don't need you. They can look up the weather themselves. They don't need you. What they need you to know is like, what's the weather going to be like next month? Why is the weather going to be like that? What are we going to do to prepare for the upcoming weather? Like, so it's insights and analysis, not reporting. And that's on a monthly basis. And then, in EOS parlance, we would have, marketing L10, which is more in the weeds of like, all right, what are the issues that need to be discussed and solved in this week that are going to create the tasks for this week, so that we can knock those off? Like, what's the punch list for the week? They're week to week it's campaign dependent because there's some campaigns you do want to check in on results on a more frequent basis, but usually the weeklies are more like status updates, because for most campaigns you just haven't collected enough data from a week to week to be able to make any kind of insights and analysis.
Ours is very similar to Gyi's, with the exception of we don't do the 10-year planning or 3-year planning. But in terms of the cadence for strategic development, that has to be quarterly. We just reintroduced a quarterly business review this year because we realized that the monthly calls ended up becoming way too tactical. So we needed a quarterly edition to take a step back, look at the numbers, and talk about both sides. Like, hey, here are the things we're doing well. Here are the things that we could improve upon within the marketing engine. But then on the flip side, hey, we noticed that you're still not getting a lot of reviews to this new Google Business Profile location. We noticed that your conversion rate on wanted leads has decreased over the last 90 days. Just having that time to take a step back and make sure that things are moving in the right direction is invaluable. And then to Guy's point, it sets the rocks for the next quarter. It sets what the big 1, 2, 3 things are that need to be tackled over that next 90 days. And then in terms of like check-in calls, we do either a bi-weekly or a monthly, depending on the client. If it's a bigger client, there's a lot more budget. We do need to meet more regularly, because if they're spending 100 grand a month, we're going to have a lot more insights much faster versus a client that might be spending 20 grand a month on, PPC or LSA, right? So it varies, but that's externally. And then internally, and I think you said this, Gyi, how you guys do it internally, but we do meet internally weekly. We have a weekly client performance meeting, 2 hours. We go through the entire roster. We look at week to week performance. We see if there's any notable fluctuations. Is there anything we need to triage right now? Is there anything we need to pause, enable, so on and so forth? But presenting weekly insights, which by the way is an oxymoron, there's really no insight on a week to week basis. It's kind of a futile effort. So we limit the insight discussion for those bi-weeklies or those monthlies, because again, to Guy's point, there's just not enough data. And I love that you said, Gyi, like, don't let them read off the report. Don't let them regurgitate numbers. That's not what you pay them for. You pay them for insights and recommendations. Why did this happen? Why does it matter? What next? What next? What next? That should be the call. That should be the call. The call shouldn't be, hey, all right, here's campaign number 1, and we had X number of impressions. Like, who cares? Go look at the report. Last thing I'll say too, ask about reporting when you are vetting an agency. Ask for examples of reporting. Ask about the cadence in which that report is shared. All of our reports are on Looker Studio, so you can see them in real time. The data refreshes every morning. And I know that there are agencies that still do this, and that's fine. I never liked when agencies sent like a PDF, a monthly PDF of, hey, here's all the numbers. Like, that data should be available to you right now, or at the very least.
100%.
Yeah.
No, 100%. So, and the distinction I always make that you're articulating is clients can have access to their dashboard anytime they want. They can check in with their dashboard anytime they want. The monthly is the insights and analysis. And that's why, like, I've really been trying internally to be like, let's not even use the word report, because the reporting, like, it just feels like you're a news reporter, like you're just reporting the news. Like, you don't need to report the news. I've got the dashboard. I see the news. Tell me the insights, the recommendations, the analysis, to your point. And I also think there's a certain amount of like gatekeeping that goes on with agencies where they're like, you're not going to get it. You're going to report on a monthly basis. Like, no, this is my data. I should have access to this on demand. Like, when I want to look at it asynchronously, and that's another thing too, now that you got me ranting, where you can provide insights and analysis asynchronously. Great. I think there's no substitute for back and forth real-time communication and collaboration. But look, clients are busy, and the scheduling can be hard. Like, if you've got insights and analysis that you can deliver, whether it's with a video, a Loom video, or even just an email with text or whatever it is, like, provide those insights and analysis asynchronously so that you're not, waiting to like schedule something. Because I think same thing we talk about in the context of approvals, so much is delayed by like trying to get common calendars amongst people that could be easily solved by just deliver the thing asynchronously. And the final thing that all of this stuff really has made me think about is another, like, I guess you can call it a red flag. It's kind of an implicit in everything we've been talking about. It's this mindset of, like, if you listen to what we've just been talking about, everything we're talking about is a partnership between the agency and the firm, not adversarial. Like, stop treating and I get it, you're a trial lawyer, right? It's an adversarial system. Like, you want to be an adversary and you want to fight about it, and you should hold people accountable and you should hold agencies accountable. But you're going to get so much more. And for, just in keeping the context of this conversation, if you're coming at us from day one adversarially, that's a red flag. Like, I can already tell you, like, a lot of times we're never going to get past the exploratory call. And if somehow you get past that and it continues to be adversarial, we're going to be like, this isn't working out, and it's not good for you. It's not good for us. And so anyway, for me, like, we're looking for firms that want to do all of, they're committed to the data infrastructure. They're committed to diversification. They're committed to growth. They want to understand, they want to participate, and they want a partner, and not like, and again, I hate to say it, but like, even like the term vendor, you get into this mindset where it's like a commodity that I'm paying for, and not and whatever you want to call it. You can call it an agency, you can call it consulting, you can call it fractional, whatever you're going to call it. You need somebody who's going to be a partner to help your business grow, not somebody that you're just going to be like, writing a check and not talking to for years at a time, and then coming back and being like, what happened?
I never well, I do understand it, but being in the agency when the firm would essentially just take out any bad day or any news that they didn't really appreciate and just take it out on the account manager or the CS or whomever it is. And I just want it, you're gonna attract more bees with honey, man. It's like, why are we shredding these? Like, they have a job, they have family, they have friends, like, they are human, right? Like, if there's a disagreement, let's talk about it professionally and figure out what the next step is to be more collaborative. Because I can tell you from being on both sides here, the agency wants nothing more than to make you crush it as a firm. Because when you do, it's expansion opportunity for them, right? You continue to help support them. Talked about the ecosystem. Rising tide is going to lift all boats. So if we are collaborative, transparent, give access to information without completely relinquishing all ownership and administrative rights of our tools, right? Making sure that that is going to be pushing us towards a revenue-based financial outcome discussion. Like, that's the place where you want to be. You want to be jumping on those calls to figure out what the future does hold, how we can improve, the levers that we can then optimize to make this thing work better for everyone involved. All right. If there are any questions, throw them into the chat or the Q&A. We did kind of end up here anyway, but closing thoughts, Gyi and Bo. I know we talked about some of the things that we find would make a poor fit client. Why don't you just rattle up a couple of things or characteristics of the firms that you fight for, that you want to get them into your roster?
You want me to go first?
Couple, yeah, but just rattle off them quick.
So I was gonna, I mentioned we do EOS, so I was just gonna read you our target market, the list, and so because I think we try to encapsulate some of these things. So, we work with consumer-facing law firms. So it's the major consumer-facing categories who we have confidence we can profitably deliver value to, as defined by the client, right? Because the client's got to be on board with what the value is, who share our values, which speaks to all the things we talked about in terms of like doing what you say you're going to do. They're going to treat us respectfully. They're not going to be adversarial. They're going to be constructive. They have a desire to grow. That's another one that, a lot of firms will come in and they'll say like, I want to do this marketing thing, but like, they're not really like growth focused. They're like, they feel like they have to do something, like, but you got to have a desire to grow. And then the final one, which I think we spend a lot of time talking about, is understand the language of business. If you come in and you're just like, I don't even have a sense of my P&L or what my growth objectives are. Like, we want to try to help you get there, but you got to have a foundational understanding of business. Like, those are the things that we really look for.
Not to copy Gyi's response, but we're looking for pretty much all the same things. I think we touched on all of the big ones. I know, Ron, are we going to talk a little bit about, on the flip side, what firms should look out for too? And maybe that'll be some of the questions. Because I know there's some big things.
Yeah, I mean, we can rattle off that. I mean, if anyone wants to stay on, I got a little bit of extra time to extend, but this was more so from the agency perspective. We could just do another one, and we'll share.
We'll do another one. Let's do it again.
Another one. We'll do another one.
Back. We'll do it again.
Flip side.
There are plenty of things. Yes, that would have to probably be like a 3-part series of all the things that
therapy
out for. Yes. Maybe we'll bring on some lawyers as well to throw into the. I like it. We'll figure that out. I'm building out the 26 roster of what we'll be doing for the rest of this webinar series. I'm losing time, and I have to find it to keep doing it. So anyway, both of you, thank you so much. Greatly appreciate all your insights. For anyone that wants to talk to any of us, please select it in the post-meeting survey. You can find all of us on LinkedIn. sharing some more free stuff. Any feedback, good, bad, or ugly, we'll always take it. I want to make sure that these are as valuable for everyone that joined. Thank you for all these people that stayed till the very end. We know your time is it's very valuable. So the fact that you spent it with us, we're super grateful and wish you nothing but the best as you continue on your marketing journeys. Don't hesitate to reach out with questions, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Ron. Thanks, everyone.
All right.